Good afternoon. We're back with the interview of the day. My name is Galiya Khassenkhanova, and today we're talking about the upcoming referendum with Chairperson of Foreign Policy Research Institute, Bolat Nurgaliyev. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Nurgaliyev, the national referendum will vote on 56 amendments to the Constitution. How will they influence the development of society and the country as a whole, and what changes will the population see in everyday life?
I believe that the forthcoming referendum will be a major step in the implementation of the desire of the whole nation of Kazakhstan to modernize and set up a new road of renovation and modernization. That is what we call a new Kazakhstan. And because nearly 1/3 of the articles of the current constitution are being amended, and there will be additions, the decision to get the approval through the nationwide referendum is, in my opinion, a correct one, because such major changes need the stamp of approval from the majority of the citizens, who I am confident will actively take part in voting for the changes. Every country has its own history related to the constitution, to the main law. And of course, Kazakhstan is not an exception in this regard. We had several constitutions. The current one adopted through the first referendum in 1995. Before that, there was a constitution of 1993. And at the time of Kazakhstan gaining independence, we were living under the constitution which was adopted in the Soviet times, constitution of 1987. So we know from the history of our international partners that from time to time the necessity to introduce amendments is born out of certain understanding that changes are necessary and certain laws are to be clarified. And of course, what are the principles of the Constitution, they should be from time to time reviewed. I see that this, the changes, the amendments to the Constitution are born out of the modernization program initiated by President Tokayev when he was addressing the nation on the 16th of March. He set up the outline for the changes that he believes are necessary. And as a result, the idea that we need to set certain line under the previous stage of development and start new, and there is a discussion about the Second Republic, which is, I believe, gaining more and more frequent usage in the political discourse of our country. That is why there's it wasn't unexpected. It was something which is a logical outcome of the developments. And I would also like to stress that, of course, our country went through this tragic period of January events. And again, my personal opinion is that if it were not for January events, maybe there wouldn't be such a strong impulse for the change, because the major conclusion out of these events was that the government which listens, the state which listens, should follow the demand within the society for the social, political, and economic changes. And that is why I believe these amendments were introduced, were widely discussed, and now we are just 5 days away from the actual voting.
The Constitution of Kazakhstan over the years of independence was amended 5 times. What is the distinction of these amendments with the previous amendments?
I have partially already answered to this question. I believe that such major changes, 56 articles, different amendments being offered and are submitted for the approval. The major thing about these constitutional changes is to go along with the mood of the society and follow the changes in the attitude. New Kazakhstan is a fair Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan where every citizen should, according to the Constitution, have the right to determine her or his destiny the way he wants, the cult of meritocracy, and rooting out all the factors which feed corruption, nepotism, and general pessimism that if you do not have right connections, you are not able to succeed in this life. And this demand was recognized by the head of the state, and when he was speaking, just when he assumed the power in March 2019, and throughout these 2.5 years of his being in power, he was repeatedly, consistently stating the need for major changes, for major modernization, adaptation of our laws and practices to the changes within the society. Every society grows. For example, if we take the Constitution of the United States of America, it was adopted 11 years after proclaiming, after the United States proclaims its existence as the independent nation in 1787, and since then there were thousands of amendments proposed, but only 27 were adopted. So each country, as I said, has its own practice, its own history. Yes, we, throughout these 30 years of our independence, there were changes in the constitution, but I believe at this particular juncture, we are in a completely, radically changed atmosphere, both internally within the Kazakh society and in terms of the geopolitical surrounding of our country. So these changes, I believe, will be very beneficial for further development of our country as the respectable member of the international community. And I think that the major drive, if we look at the amendments which are introduced, we see that all of them are dictated by the necessity to modernize public life and strengthen democracy, a democratic way of deciding the issues related to public governance. The major message of all the changes is that citizens have to be the masters, and the relation between the society and the state should be, as is universally recognized, that the state serves the interests of the society, not vice versa. And that is why the formula of elections, where when people will feel that they have their say in who becomes their delegate in, be it the local legislative councils, maslihats, or the national parliament, that it has the direct bearing, and that's why the principles of majority and proportional way of selecting candidates to become deputies, representatives of the general population, increasing their responsibility before the electorate so that their performance will be evaluated by people who elected them. Because previously there was a detachment. So once you get elected, then you are not, theoretically yes, but in practice you are not directly responsible before the people who participated in the election. So the direct link between people who are elected to higher positions and the assessment of their performance belonging to the general populace, this is the recipe to resolve all the pressing issues which relate to unemployment, poverty, and inability to fulfill your ambitions, which were the cause for the social unrest which culminated in the January events of 2022.
Some countries like Turkey and Russia are strengthening their presidential form of government. Kazakhstan, on the other hand, is seeking to minimize the powers of the president. What is the reaction of the international community?
First of all, I would say that it is wrong, in my opinion, to state that the intention is to minimize the powers of the president. We know very well that the principle would be strong president, influential parliament, responsible government, and independent judiciary. So, but strong president, of course, it is quite necessary, for the effective governance in determining the priorities of domestic and foreign policy, because this mission of the head of state is not going to be diminished as if these amendments in the constitution are approved. And unfortunately, what we had prior to 2019 was the super presidential form of the republic. Maybe it was justified for a certain historic period, but then it outlived its effectiveness and became, in a way, a burden for the speedy modernization of public life. Because when everything depends on the president, then unfortunately the side effect is that those who are closer to him, to the president, to her, would be, it's just general rule, irrespective of what country we are talking about, they become more inclined to use this proximity to the power to get personal gain at the expense of the wider interests of the society. And the amendments in the Constitution, the way the role of the president is envisaged is directed to making sure that this particular trend is does not longer exist, and we will have a president who is indeed, in reality, serving the interests of all the citizens. Because unfortunately, again, if the president is the member or the leader of one particular party, the influence of this particular party is unproportionally bigger than other parties which are represented in the parliament, which gain the support through elections, and it is creating conditions which are not so good for political competition, without which healthy development of the society is not possible. That's why the changes which are suggested to ban the head of state from belonging to the party, to a particular political party while he is in power, plus the ban on the members of the parliament, members of the Supreme Court, the judges of the Supreme Court, the law enforcement and national security officers, members of the election commissions, and local governors to head the the branches of political parties is a way of ensuring that they are not representing the interests of one political group, but the whole populace, and this will be also an additional guarantee that the voices of all citizens will be represented, and the concept of listening government will be materialized.
Thank you, Mr. Nurgaliyev, for allowing us your time, and thank you everyone for watching.